Once upon a time, in a faraway land, a young prince lived in a shining castle. Although he had everything his heart desired, the prince was spoiled, selfish, and unkind. One winter's night, an old beggar woman came to the castle and offered him a single rose in return for shelter from the bitter cold. The prince, repulsed by her haggard appearance, sneered at the gift and turned the old woman away. But she warned him not to be deceived by appearances, for beauty, she said, is found within. And when the prince dismissed her again, the old woman's ugliness began to melt away to reveal a beautiful enchantress. The prince tried to apologize, but it was too late, for she had seen that there was no love in his heart. As punishment, she transformed him into a hideous beast and placed a powerful spell on the castle and all who lived there.
We're here at the IAJE 31st Annual Conference in New York City, and we're doing this project on Rich Madison, and I'm really delighted to have a great friend of mine to sit and chat about a great friend of ours, Rich Madison, Ron Logan, who is formerly a high school and college band director, and then spent probably close to 30 years with the Disney Corporation as vice president and all the way up to executive vice president of entertainment worldwide, and was also president of the Walt Disney Broadway Company that brought Beauty and the Beast and Lion King to Broadway. So we're delighted to have you with us today, Ron. And as you always just tell me, if you can't have fun doing what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I had 15 wonderful years at Disney, and it was time to look for something else. And I'm now doing something I thought I would never do, and I'm in academia. But I'm working with some great people. Warwick Carter, of course, who you hired into Disney as well from Berkeley. And I'm just having a great time up there working with young people. I guess that's the real stimulus, is to see young people who are now moving into the professional world in their careers. And you're doing that now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
I'm back teaching, came full circle after 30 years. And it's very interesting because it's really changed in those 30 years as far as students. But I teach in a school called the Rosen School of Hospitality Management, and it's a brand new school that teaches about the hospitality business. And I teach courses in theme park management, kind of a 101 intro to hospitality. So I've learned a lot about restaurants and hotels and things, but I also teach a master class on entertainment, arts, and events, which talks about entertainment and evolution of it. So I'm delighted. I have very large classes. I have 235 in one class.
Wow.
So very interested students. They're there because they want to be.
I hope you're getting paid by the head.
Pay has nothing to do with it. When I retired, as you know, Paul,
Yeah.
I made it through the corporate world, which I'm very proud of.
Not too many people do. So.
No, not in the entertainment business. And you get a window on Main Street in the Gadget Kingdom and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I really don't have to work, which is great when you teach and you don't have to, because you don't get paid too much money to do it. But I had two rules. One was I was never going to work for anybody I didn't like anymore. I was only going to talk to people that wanted to hear what I had to say, because in the corporate world, that's the biggest problem, get the people to listen to you. Okay. So I'm just having a ball.
Oh, that's
I'm
great.
just having a ball.
That's great. Well, we were talking a few minutes ago about Rich and our first meeting with him. Of course, I know we have some stories we can't tell for obvious reasons, but
another video.
Right. But tell us about your first meeting with Rich.
I actually met Rich when I was a college band director in Long Beach, California, and associated with the IAJE then, which is a long time. And I would go to North Texas State to do auditions, and Rich Madison was the instructor there. And it was a little difficult to the academia there to get attached, but I met Rich, and he said, "Come on in, man," and so I met him there, and I was amazed to find a baritone horn player that could play jazz, because baritone horn was always kind of the instrument you put the lousy trumpet player on, in those days. And I saw what Rich did as an instructor, and the great musicians we got out of that school really bonded us, because I knew if I went to that school, we'd have a great relationship and get great students. That carried on. When I went to Disney full-time, we brought Rich in many times as a clinician, because he was just so good at education. And the thing I liked about Rich, he was a real person who taught in a real way. You know, sometimes academia has a habit of snubbing their nose at things, or you read too much what you write.
Right.
You know, Rich was never like that, and he was a terrific instructor. The other thing I noticed about Rich, he looked like my uncle. And I told him, I said, you have a twin in Kansas who looks just like you. But my uncle, the only talent he had was making money. You know, he was not a musician because he was a farmer. So Rich and I really hit it off through those years, and we would bring him to a jazz lounge and play, which was a great little small lounge, intimate kind of a thing. And we just continued that relationship through the years. I don't know how many years, probably, 35?
Wow.
Something like that I knew Rich and would meet on and on.
Tell us about the college program that I guess initially started off with you in Disneyland and then worked its way over to Walt Disney World, and Rich coming out to do those things for you.
We had a thing, it originally was called the college work program, work experience program, and the idea of that was we would audition college students around the U.S. We used to do it just by recommendation, first of all. Then we went to video, and we got burned there a few times with people, so then we did it in person. But that program was, which is over 30 years old now at Disneyland, we would bring college students into the summer, and they would perform. We would put a performing group together, and we had bands, orchestras, singing groups, street theater, and all that. And they would learn about the business, and we would bring in top industry people, educators, to teach them about the business. That was the whole thing. The great thing about that program is that we placed about 98% of our people historically through the years, which was a great resource for Disney to find new talent and to find talent who could work for us, because, you know, Disney was a different kind of place as far as entertainment. So we would bring people like Rich in to talk and work with the students. IAGE was doing that also in the beginning, so it wasn't a unique idea, but it became something that, I tell you, the all-stars that we brought into that program and still do was just amazing. It was really a who's who of what's going on and what the industry was like. And that program was meant to do one of two things. It was to convince the students who took it that they want to go into the business or not. The problem, you know, generally is you don't decide or not until you've invested too many years in your life. So it was a good thing for that, and it went on for years. We had a ball with it. It was always voted the best entertainment thing we ever had in the summer, so you can never argue that educational things couldn't be a good product for our audiences,
Show product.
because we worked really hard at that. Still very proud of that program.
Tell me a little bit about, I'm not sure whether you ever had the tuba consort into Disney after Harvey and Rich put that. You did?
Yeah, we did. Tuba concert was one of those amazing things again. You know, you think about tuba players again. In most marching bands, half the tuba players play and half the tuba players carry, you know, so that they look like they have a lot of tuba players. Because one of the last things anybody wants to do is carry that big instrument around. And Rich was a very strong guy who could do that too. But it was amazing to me, and I learned about the consort by doing their Christmas stuff. You know, either Christmas stuff in New York, where they get 35, 40, 50 tuba players who would play Christmas carols.
Right.
So it became a very important thing. As a matter of fact, at the Disney MGM Studios, we had a subgroup of our marching band in there that played tubas and baritone horns in the same style. You know, and the great thing about it, it was all jazz oriented. It was never stiff. You know, it was always kind of fun, and it was always meant to be fun, which is why it really sold to people.
As a matter of fact, you may remember this now. When I was working for you, I brought in Harvey Phillips, and we did Tuba Christmas in front of the castle.
Yes,
we had 600 euphoniums and tubas. What a picture! What a picture that was. And
I remember you telling me you were going to do that as a threat.
But we had a great time with it. We had a great time. And as I think to my relationships with Rich, both as a boss, I worked for him. He was head of the program, and I was supporting him in that first year at the University of North Florida. He was always had a joke and a good word and whatever. But what is one of the things that how do I want to phrase this? How would you best describe Rich if you were trying to describe him to somebody that didn't know him? Because that's
Charisma. Mm-hmm. Rich Madison is the kind of guy, if you walked in this room, everybody would turn around and look at him. And he would take advantage of that. He's like a friend you always had, he didn't know it. You know, he was always very personable. I had never, ever saw him uptight. I'm sure the family did and other people, but he was always relaxed. He always made you feel relaxed. And you know, this thing with communication, if you're a good teacher, you're a teacher that can make your students want to listen to you. And you do it by being not necessarily one of them, but relaxed on a person-to-person basis. You know, I say to people all the time, you ask me about teaching, you got to teach like you're talking to one person, even though there might be 235 people in that room. And some people have a knack of doing that and some don't. And Rich Madison always had a knack of doing that. Anytime you would walk up and go to say hello to Rich, you knew there was going to be a smile, a joke, hey, how you doing, man? He was always concerned about what you did. He always knew everything about you. He just was an individual who took the time and effort to do that. And you mentioned the word, or somebody did, the word passion. That's what Rich Madison was all about. Passion for living, being with people, doing his thing. And he had a very unique thing because of his personality, the instrument he played, and his talent, and his effect on people.
As a brass player, as a trumpet player yourself, I mean, what were your thoughts when you first heard him do the things that he did on that instrument?
Impossible. Impossible. First of all, the instrument. I had the double baritone a few times in my life. You know, it's an impossible instrument to play. I mean, the strength you have to have in your fingers to get those valves down in the first place. Trumpet's pretty easy relative to that. Man, the strength of those valves, and then you got to hold that thing. I mean, it's just, to me, it's impossible. And I think that's one of the reasons Rich was so well known at it, being a tough instrument that he really mastered, you know, in regard to what he wanted to do with it, and he did things with it nobody had ever done with it, you know.
There's a couple special moments that I remember about Rich. One was when we had put together the Walt Disney World All-Star Band to open up the IAJE conference in Miami.
Yes.
And that was probably one of his last performances, if not the last performance, public performance that he had done. And we brought him in the night before. It was a Thursday, I believe, or excuse me, a Tuesday night. And we had a short rehearsal, and he had been traveling that day, and he was quite fatigued, and I was concerned, you know, how he was going to, you know, come to the gig the next day, and, you know, would he be able to, you know, do the whole gig. But boy, to my surprise, he came, and I'd never heard him play as well as he did that day. It was just absolutely incredible. And we did a good hour and 15-minute show, and he was a large part of that particular performance.
You know, I was very proud of that because it was in Miami, so it was closer to Orlando. And I always wanted to show the industry that you can be a great musician and still play Mickey Mouse March. You know, the people in IAGE and the real industry know that you have to be good to do what we do in the parks because you have to be versatile and do everything else. But I wanted to show the young students that that was the case. You know, that you come to Disney and make a good living and perform. And so we had an all-star band. That band was put together by me putting an edict out, who wants to do it. Then I made sure we screened it, so if I had any guys who were giving us any trouble, they didn't get to do it.
Right.
So it became a real thing, an all-star band that became a plus, a real morale boost for the people who did it. And you conducted was perfect for that. So I was extremely proud of that for two reasons. Number one, that band just really kicked ass. And secondly, that Rich was part of it. Yeah. And I'll never forget little John Allred, and that, you know, who I'm doing a lot of things with his dad now since I'm retired. But John and him doing that battle
up front
thing with the baritones, it was just, you know, passing of the torch kind of thing.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Standing ovation out for every tune in that concert. Matter of fact, I think I have a tape that Mickey
had made
that I still have that I look at every once in a while and look at this. I was very proud of that whole thing, and I was really happy Rich was a part of that.
That's great. In closing, Ron, what do you think? What do I want to say here? What legacy do you think Rich has left?
Well, he certainly has a legacy of the people he touched. Nobody has to read about it. So the people he touched, and the great thing about Rich's life is he touched a lot of people because he did a lot of different things. He traveled a lot, he got to a lot of different people. His name was really known. It was very interesting to me because Rich was not noted as a top seller that I know of things, but everybody knew who he was because of his credentials. And his legacy, I think, is that you can be yourself as long as you're passionate about it and you expect the best in what you do as a person. And that has to do as a human being. It has to do as a performer. It has to do as a promoter, because Rich was a very aggressive guy in regard to promoting things and things like that. He was like a corporation within himself. And the legacy will be there as long as people keep hearing about who he was. It's one of those historical things. And I'm glad you're doing this DVD, because that will help with that. And what will happen is, as you know, has happened in my industry, when we talk about Walt Disney, or we talk about Bob Yanni, who was a great friend of ours, who redid Radio City over here, we carry that legacy on. So if we have materials like you're doing, and I have a class, and I'm talking about entertainment arts, I say, I want you to look at this, because here is a hero in the business who achieved what he achieved. That's the way you do it. And to me, that's what academia should be in these days. You know, the video that goes with the CD and goes with the information in the books and all of that. And I think it's, you know, it will live on because we'll want it to live on. It's not a thing in our industry, like when I'm teaching now, nobody tells me what to teach. This academic freedom thing, you know. Right. I can teach whatever I want to teach. Well, I want to teach about guys like Rich Madison because it's a great story to tell, and as you do that, it just keeps getting passed on. And if you have the CDs and the DVDs, that helps carry that legacy on.
Well, I know while Rich was alive, we honored him on several occasions. You presented him with Mouskers, which was the Disney's answer to the Oscar, and he also was presented with a very large wooden hand-carved Mickey later, prior to his death. And I know you were an avid supporter of his and jazz music and IAJE, and we thank you for taking the time today. I know you got a busy schedule, so.
Well, I'm just delighted you asked me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.